In my previous video, I counted down my top 10 favorite Godzilla movies of all time. I gushed about why I love certain films in the franchise and went all fanboy for a good chunk of time. While I may be a diehard fan, I'm not one to wear rose-tinted glasses all the time either. I can acknowledge when not everything is perfect. For as many Godzilla movies I do like, there are a select few that I either don't care for and some that I just really don't like. So today, we're jumping onto the opposite end of the spectrum, and I'm going to give you all my picks for my least favorite Godzilla movies. As mentioned in my last video, these are all my opinions. If there's a movie on here you like, that's great. I'm not here to tell you you're wrong because you like something I don't. In fact, I actually think that's awesome that you can find enjoyment in these movies. Let's just remember to keep things respectful. Also, I would really like to stress this again too. I'm going based off of what I recently watched. I gave all of these movies a fair chance, and I rewatched them all from beginning to end. So if I say I didn't like the movie, just know I am being 100% honest. I'm also emphasizing that these are my least favorite movies, and not the ones I necessarily consider to be the worst. Lastly, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge one particular movie, and that's Godzilla 1998. Yeah, spoiler alert, it will not be on this list. I will go more into detail in a separate video, but just know, I don't consider it to be that bad. I know the phrase, it's not a bad movie, just a bad Godzilla movie, likes to get thrown around when talking about this movie, but in all honesty, I don't even think it's that bad of a Godzilla movie either.
You what?
He's absolutely bonkers.
I'm sorry, but I don't. With that out of the way, here are my top 10 least favorite Godzilla movies. Godzilla Raids Again. A lot of people slammed this movie for being such a major letdown compared to the first movie. While yeah, it could have been better, I don't think it's the god-awful sequel everyone else makes it out to be. Everything leading up to the final battle between Godzilla and Anguirus is honestly really good. I like the monster action in miniatures, the characters, while simple, are still likable enough, and the pacing feels tight and concise. By the time Godzilla and Anguirus finish their final battle, I'm thinking, you know what? That was actually okay. Now it'll be just a few more minutes and then we'll wrap it all up in a nice little... No. That can't be real. There's still over half an hour left of the movie? I swear, the first time I saw this movie, those were my genuine thoughts. I was like, what the hell else is left? Upon rewatch, I completely forgot about this part of the movie, and when I was reminded, that's when I had that unsatisfactory feeling. The real climax of the movie involves pilots burying Godzilla in an avalanche. This takes up the rest of the film, and while it doesn't sound that bad, after a while of just watching missiles hit a mountainside, it gets mind-numbingly repetitive. That's my biggest flaw with this movie. Whenever I think about it, I don't remember the latter half, and when I do, I forget how long and drawn out it really is. It's like the filmmakers planned everything out leading up to the climactic monster brawl, but had to come up with something to stretch the runtime to feature length. I get so invested in the first half of the movie that by the time the monster fight ends, I just want it to wrap up and be done already. However, that being said, there are still quite a handful of positives. The first half of the movie is still well done, as previously mentioned. The scene where the military shuts off the city's power and uses flares to lure Godzilla away is one of the most eerie scenes in the film. The cinematography, the droning music, the way Godzilla is engulfed in silhouette, it's all very well executed. Godzilla's design is both sleek and reptilian looking, but also uncanny and unsettling to look at, and I actually really like it. The sped up frame rate for the fight scenes I actually kinda dig too. It adds this fierceness and intensity to it all, like I'm watching two wild animals really duking it out. And of course, this movie gave us Anguirus, a character that would become a beloved fan favorite and Godzilla's best sidekick later on. I by no means think this is a bad movie, far from it. It just feels like a short film dragged to feature length, and it does feel very underwhelming compared to the first movie. And speaking of underwhelming, destroy all monsters. This was originally intended to be the final Godzilla movie, until it wasn't. This movie is highly regarded among fans, but for me, it's a very lackluster attempt at a finale. The biggest point of criticism I hear the most is that there's not a lot of action in the movie considering it's titled Destroy All Monsters, how it's mostly just human talking scenes. But for me personally, that's not the issue. My issue is that the movie tries to act like a mystery, but fails miserably. It tries to present us with all these different questions like, how did the monsters get free? Why are they attacking the cities? Who's behind it all? And so forth. Except, we already know the answers to these questions. When we first meet the Keylocks, they make it explicitly clear to the main protagonists that they are aliens and they're controlling the monsters. Yet the movie continues to treat this like we don't already know. I can't even say it's just a case of the audience knows but the characters don't, because they absolutely do. We are the Keylocks, and we are controlling the monsters. The Keylocks are controlling the monsters. The Keylocks are aliens from another planet. My god, the Keylocks are aliens from another planet. So you figured out we're from another planet. We, the audience, and the main characters are told the same information twice, and it's treated like it's some sort of aha moment.
I hope so. I love aha.
This is what drags down the pacing for me because it's treating it like we don't know information that we already know, and as a result, it makes the movie boring. It's bizarre moments like that that also make this movie unintentionally funny for me. A prime example is the scene where Dr. Otani, under the control of the Keylocks, commits suicide by jumping out of a window. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It just looks funny. Unless it's Harold and Maude, I should not be laughing while watching someone commit suicide. The biggest point of praise people give this movie is the climactic battle with Godzilla and the rest of the Monsterland kaiju teaming up against Ghidorah. The fight does have its moments, but once Gorosaurus kangaroo kicks Ghidorah, the rest of the fight is just watching the other monsters beating the shit out of him for an, honestly, uncomfortable amount of time. Again, not bad, but for a film that was meant to be the last, it's a very disappointing attempt to wrap up the series, at least for me. Godzilla vs. Gigan. I originally had this movie in the bottom 5 until I had the opportunity to see this movie on film at the Stray Cat Theater. Bit of a tangent here, but stay with me for just a second. For those unaware, Stray Cat is an independently run movie theater in Kansas City that shows classic movies on old film strips. Every once in a while, they play a classic Godzilla movie on 16mm film, which, for those who've never seen a 16mm film, looks like this, and the movie they showed not too long ago was Godzilla vs. Gigan. My buddy Jonah invited me and my girlfriend to come see it with him, and it was actually really fun. Seeing a classic Godzilla movie in a theater on old grainy film reels was something I never thought I'd be able to do, and it was amazing. I still don't think the movie's very good, but it's a lot better than I originally gave it credit for. A comic book artist being manipulated to create a child's attraction for aliens who want to use it as a control base is a pretty original idea. Unfortunately though, it's not fully taken advantage of. We see World Children's Land and the Godzilla Tower already built, and that's it. We never see them use the park to attract people and round them up for Gigan, or if the attraction works on fooling people into thinking it's a safe space for children. As such, because the full potential of this idea isn't fully realized, there's no real tension and the story feels slow and empty. While Ghidorah and Gigan are destroying Tokyo, it keeps cutting back to Godzilla and Angulus still on their way. After a while, it's like, guys, what's taking you so long? Not that it really matters once they do get there, because a lot of the fight is shot in slow-mo. I get this was to make the monsters feel bigger, but it just feels like a slog. Much of the fight is just the monsters flopping on the ground and rolling around. It does get fun by the end, but it's still a seat squirmer to get there. Had this movie not given us the ridiculously badass monster Gigan, some neat ideas, and had I not seen this movie on film, this would have been much, much lower. Godzilla's Revenge, or All Monsters Attack. Neither title fits the movie. Objectively speaking, this is the worst Godzilla movie ever made. However, this isn't objective. There are a few key reasons why this movie isn't any lower, but we'll get to those reasons when we get there. Director Ishiro Honda still wanted this movie to have something to say without it being a shallow kids film. So, he decided to show how children were seemingly left to fend for themselves for one reason or another, which leads into an anti-bullying message about standing up for oneself. Commendable for sure, but the anti-bullying message of the film isn't entirely fleshed out. Ichiro and Minya talk endlessly about learning to not run away and stand up for themselves, yet Ichiro doesn't really try standing up to his bullies until the very end, and by that point, it doesn't feel earned. At one point, the movie takes a surprisingly bleak turn when two robbers kidnap Ichiro because he accidentally took one of their wallets. It feels like it was added simply to give the movie some tension, which only adds to my criticism that the bullying aspect of the movie wasn't fleshed out enough. Had the movie focused on Ichiro actually trying to work on standing up for himself, there wouldn't have been a need to include this uneasy subplot. Having all the monster scenes be dream sequences, I'm a little conflicted on. A kid who feels powerless imagining Godzilla as a symbol of strength and bravery is actually really sweet and endearing. But that also means there are no stakes since none of the monster scenes actually happen. On a more positive note, the anti-bully message, while misguided, still has good intentions. Ichiro himself is really likable, and his scenes with Minya, specifically in the Japanese version, feel very genuine and rather charming. The US version, on the other hand...
Godzilla says that I should learn to fight my own battles, you know.
Oh, dear lord. Gabara, I also have a soft spot for. His toad, ogre-like appearance is very unique, and his roar is both cool and actually kind of creepy. Also, he low-key used to scare me as a kid. I mean, look at his face. Look at that face and tell me that wouldn't scare you as a kid. Finally, while this movie is really bad, I can't put it any lower because A, it's stupidly short, B, I do have deep childhood nostalgia for it, and C, I at least see it as so bad it's good. King Kong vs. Godzilla. I'm sorry, but upon rewatch, I found myself not really enjoying this movie as much as I used to. Don't be mistaken, I think the final fight between Godzilla and King Kong on Mount Fuji is really good. It's the duel the whole movie built up to, and it is well worth the price of admission. Everything leading up to it, though... I get what this movie is trying to do. It's supposed to be a satire of television and how producers will do anything scummy to boost ratings. In this case, Mr. Tako wants to take Kong from Faroe Island and use him as an attraction, similar to the original King Kong from 1933. I get the satirical aspect of the movie, but for me personally, I just don't think it's that funny. A lot of the performances are just too exaggerated for my taste. With exceptions like Dumb and Dumber and sometimes Drake and Josh, I just can't get into the overly expressive, humans acting like cartoon style of humor and throughout most of the human scenes. If you find this humor funny, that's fine. It's just not for me. I also really don't like the monster suits in this movie. Godzilla looks okay for the most part, but it does look the most like a costume compared to previous and future suits. It's just way too saggy. Kong's suit is atrocious. I've seen better looking gorilla costumes from Halloween stores. From what I've gathered, it's because RKO, the studio behind the original King Kong, told Toho not to make their King Kong look like the original. So to avoid legal troubles, they modeled Kong's face after the Japanese macaque. Like, I get it, but really? A macaque? They couldn't have gone with a chimp or a bonobo or anything closer to a gorilla? Final fight aside, this movie just leaves no lasting impression on me. It's not awful, but I don't find the human characters entertaining, I don't think the effects are exactly stellar, and it just feels like a dollar store King Kong movie. Ebirah, Horror of the Deep. This movie seems to have gotten a surprising cult following over the years, and I've even heard some people say this was their first Godzilla movie. If that's the case, that's all well and good. I'm happy for you. I'm glad you can enjoy the movie. For me, though, let's just get into it. The big talking point around this movie is that it was meant to be a King Kong movie first, but Godzilla got penciled into the movie with no real changes. The way I see it, it wouldn't have mattered if King Kong was in the movie as originally intended or not, because, quite frankly, I don't really care about the monster scenes in this movie. Unlike other lower tier Godzilla movies where the human story is meh, but the monster stuff is good, this one is the complete opposite for me. I actually found myself very engaged watching Ryota work with Yoshimura and Daio to free the natives from the red bamboo and find Ryota's brother. I thought the characters were interesting, likable, and I felt genuine suspense watching them try to avoid the red bamboo and find who they're looking for. So much so that when the monsters do show up, it almost takes me out of the mood because I keep forgetting this was meant to be a monster movie. Had this movie just been about a man convincing a boat thief to take him to a terrorist-run island so he could find his brother, while also helping take the group down and free slaves, I think I would have actually liked it more. The monster scenes feel like an afterthought with very little care in my eyes. I mean, for fuck's sake, look at how beat to shit the Mothra puppet is! That to me does not say care and effort. Not only do they feel second fiddle, but they leave very little impact. Sure, they have their entertaining moments, but they don't feel like they really affect the story at all until the ending. Again, if you have nostalgia for this movie and you really like it, that's great. I am not here to take that away from you by any stretch of the imagination. But for me, this is a rare occasion where I would have rather had the monster scenes completely cut out. Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. For a movie as important as this one, as it introduces Godzilla's arch-nemesis in King Ghidorah, I think this movie is incredibly underwhelming at best and downright frustrating to watch at worst. The entire first half of this movie is ungodly slow. A lot of the movie's runtime is dedicated to Princess Salno, under alien control, trying to warn the public of Ghidorah's arrival, all while assassins are out to kill her. While interesting on paper, the execution leaves a lot to be desired for me. After the third time of her trying to convince the public that she's from Venus and that Ghidorah is on his way, it gets tiresome. It's the same scene over and over again, just in a different location, and nobody ever believes her. That leads me to my second problem: the people not believing Princess Salno. I fucking hate the trope of not believing someone in a monster movie. I have seen this cliche so many goddamn times. I get not believing that she's from Venus, but not believing her when she says Ghidorah's on his way too, even when there are clear signs that he is? Or when she says Rodan, a non-alien, is also on his way? It's exhausting, especially when the people in this universe already live in a world inhabited by monsters. They know who Godzilla and Mothra are. Hell, Mothra's twin fairies become television personalities in this very movie. Maybe it's just me, but if I lived in a world inhabited by radioactive lizards, bugs the size of city blocks, and literal magical fairies? I don't think I would suddenly shun anyone who says more monsters exist. The movie once again picks up when the monsters finally show up, but that's the thing. I shouldn't be sitting on my hands waiting for the monsters to show up to have a good time. Even if the human story isn't that particularly well written, as long as it's entertaining, I'm good with it. If the human story is dog shit and boring to the point of aggravation, I'm not going to enjoy it by the time the monsters show up. Honestly, if you want to watch a much more entertaining, classic alien invasion Godzilla movie, I highly recommend Invasion of the Astro Monster. I think it is a vastly superior movie in every way and what Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster should have been.
A happy moment.
Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. Speaking of Ghidorah, this film seems to be split amongst Godzilla fans. Either you love it and think it's one of the best in the Heisei era, or you think it's overrated and one of the weaker entries in the Heisei era. For me, I definitely lean towards the latter. I think the writing in this movie is a complete mess. People from the future go back in time to erase Godzilla from history during World War II and replace him with Ghidorah shortly before the H-bomb goes off. That's all well and good, but then when they all return to the present day, everyone still remembers Godzilla. If they erased Godzilla from history, then no one should even know who or what Godzilla is, but they do for some reason. And before anyone tries to give me one of those, actually, time travel works like this, I know someone made a whole video explaining it, but that just proves my point. If you have to explain it in such a complex way in order for everything to make sense, that means the writing in the movie didn't do a good job on its own. Also, I know a lot of people like to blame the later movies in the Heisei era for messing up the continuity, but I don't think that's fair. The later movies wouldn't have had to try and rectify stuff had the time travel in this movie been more thought out. Time travel aside, the rest of the writing I think is abysmal, especially with the characters. The main character Kenichiro is told by Emi that he's one of her ancestors, yet there's clearly this sexual or romantic tension between them through most of the film, which... Speaking of Emi, she suddenly has a change of heart after seeing Ghidorah's destruction, even though she seemingly knew exactly what would happen when she put the Dorats on the island right before the bomb went off. Yeah, it's not consistent. I can't even say the monster scenes save this movie, because they really don't in my opinion. Aside from the Godzillasaurus on Lagos Island, the rest of the monster scenes just aren't as impressive or groundbreaking compared to the films before it. Compare it to the previous film, Biollante, and the film that would come after, Battle for Earth. Side by side, Ghidorah just looks drab in comparison. Even with Mecha King Ghidorah, which admittedly is badass, it loses a lot of its awe factor when you realize it just stands there bombarding Godzilla with lasers. Two monsters standing almost completely still while blasting lasers at each other is not my idea of exciting. I think Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah is not only overrated, but one of the weakest entries in the entire series. Had it not given us some interesting world building with the Godzillasaurus and Mecha King Ghidorah, this movie would be one spot lower. All I can say is that while I do think this movie is a mess, it's anything but boring. Godzilla vs. Kong. When I first saw this movie in theaters, I loved it. When I rewatched it on Blu-ray, I still really liked it. When I showed it to my girlfriend, I began to feel something was off. When I showed it to my sister to prepare her for New Empire, I finally realized what it was. I hate half of this movie. The A-plot where Gia and Dr. Andrews bring Kong to Hollow Earth is fine. It has some touching moments, specifically with Gia and Kong communicating with each other. Those felt nice and were handled okay. But the B-plot with Bernie, Madison, and Josh all sneaking into Apex Cybernetics to uncover Walter Simmons' master plan? Oh my god. I have never felt the urge to fast forward through a movie more than when I rewatched this film. Millie Bobby Brown has no reason to be in this movie. I can back her up for being in King of the Monsters, but I cannot do that here. She acts as a Godzilla cheerleader trying to convince everyone that Godzilla is being provoked by something, but Bernie was already doing that. I honestly would have preferred if the entire B-plot of this movie centered around him. A podcaster working for the main villain's company trying to uncover the underground deeds of his boss? Hell yeah, I would have much rather seen that. In the movie, he says he keeps a flask on hand because of his late wife. Why not work that in? Have him go on this one-man mission to uncover Apex Cybernetic schemes as a way to prove something to himself, a way to get over the grief of his late wife. But no, we have Millie Bobby Brown and Julian Dennison tagging along so we can have that oh so funny banter.
Mr. Bernie, not all.
Yep, that was definitely Mr. Bernie.
I drink tap water.
Yeah, I kind of figured that. But she doesn't think it for both of you, so it should be all right.
I'm maintenance. You don't have to alert that. She doesn't buy that. Madison, we need to go. The woman with the villain hairdo, she's getting security.
Fucking kill me. Having Godzilla and Kong team up to fight Mechagodzilla at the end feels contrived. It feels like they're just copying whatever the superhero movies were doing, especially Zack Snyder's Batman v Superman.
Save Martha! What does that mean? Why did you say that name? Why did you say that name?
I get not killing off one of them because, you know, you need to make more movies, but this just felt like a mess. Mechagodzilla was kind of cool though, I'm not gonna lie. The biggest issue I have with this movie is that nothing feels fleshed out at all. It all feels half-baked and leaves a lot of unopened and unanswered questions, like Bernie's personal struggles, for example. The biggest point of contention is the character Ren Serizawa, the son of Dr. Serizawa from the first two films. And before anyone tries to say, actually, it's explained in the novelization, I shouldn't have to read a fucking novel in order to fully appreciate a movie. In any other circumstance, say if a book got adapted into a film and people say, read the book, it explains a lot more than the movie does. That's usually a sign that the movie did a poor job explaining things on its own. So why should this be any different? In my opinion, this is easily the weakest entry in the MonsterVerse. Godzilla 2014 is a welcome return and a great entry for Godzilla. Kong Skull Island is a fun Vietnam movie. King of the Monsters is my pick for the best American Godzilla movie ever made. New Empire is dumb, but at least it knows what it is and it's highly entertaining. This movie, when not being average at best, is annoyingly unfunny and jumbled at worst. However, while I may have issues with the last 9 movies on this list, at the very least, they all still have some level of rewatchability. I can still pop one of these movies in and still get something out of them, even if it's not for the full runtime. That cannot be said for my number 1 spot, and that dishonor goes to... Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle. I absolutely despise this fucking movie. In my favorite Godzilla movies video, I said this about Planet Eater. This movie does what the previous film, City on the Edge of Battle, failed to do, and that's raise the stakes. When I said that, I was not exaggerating. After Planet of the Monsters ending, where a new Godzilla appears, now 300 meters tall, and completely wipes out Haruo's squad, you're left wondering, wow, what are they gonna do now? The answer is nothing. It's literally nothing. After what happened just moments before this movie takes place, all sense of urgency and tension gets flushed right down the shitter. The entire movie is spent watching people standing around in a circle spewing exposition and nothing else. Destroy All Monsters at least has interesting set pieces and some occasional monster action thrown in. Shin Godzilla has snappy dialogue, creative shots, and something important being learned at all times. This movie just crawls at this agonizingly dead pace with very tedious dialogue set in these bleak rooms, all shot so flat. I gave King Kong vs. Godzilla shit earlier because I found its humor obnoxious, but this is a case where the film takes itself so seriously, it's painfully boring. It spends so much time patting itself on the back for how deep and complex its world building is, it spends so much time explaining everything, yet paradoxically, it explains nothing all at once. Haruo's anger and lust for revenge against Godzilla has been completely stripped away. The one aspect of his character that made him even remotely interesting in the first movie, and it's taken away, making him just another blank slate talking head just like everybody else. So now, not only are we learning fuck all, but any character growth or advancements are completely halted until the last few minutes. The only things that come out of this movie are the introduction of the Hotua tribe and the Bilasalidu aliens betraying the humans and putting them in a worse spot. Even then, both of those elements don't feel exclusive to this movie. The introduction of the Hotua tribe could have been in Planet of the Monsters. The Bilasalidu's betrayal and the humans becoming desperate could have been the opening to Planet Eater. I can't even give it the benefit of the doubt of waiting until the monster scenes show up, because the monster scenes are almost entirely non-existing. Any monster action we do get happens so quickly and leaves very little dent in the story, they might as well have not even been in the movie at all. The only exception is the last 15 minutes, but by that point, it almost doesn't matter. Mechagodzilla was built up to be the big opponent for Godzilla in the movie, but that doesn't happen. Instead, it's explained that over the 20,000 years humans have been in space, the nanotechnology used to make Mechagodzilla transformed itself into a city with Mechagodzilla's head as the control center. Think about that for a second. Mechagodzilla City. How awesome does that sound? With him being made out of nanometal, is it gonna be something like Unicron where he's a city that can transform into a giant robot? Well, okay, I mean, at least he can still look really badass, right? I mean, Mechagodzilla City, imagine how awesome that could. This has to be a joke. This literally has to be a joke. It looks like the alien spaceship from Gamera vs. Virus if it lost all its color. How do you fuck up a futuristic city with this concept this badly? To me, if I think a movie is bad but still entertaining, I will always prefer that over a bad movie that's boring, frustrating, or worse, both. Out of all the 38 Godzilla movies so far, this is the only one that I genuinely never have the urge to rewatch. At least the other movies on this list are watchable to some degree. I can't even put this movie on as background noise, because there is no noise to be made. The new ideas it does present doesn't feel exclusive to its chapter, meaning it doesn't do enough to justify its own existence. It's uneventful, dull to look at, it says a lot but has nothing of value to actually say, and it's regressive to its predecessor, all in favor of being pretentious. That is why, to me, Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle is my least favorite Godzilla movie of all time. And there you have it. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you didn't find my ranting annoying at all. I hope you still found it entertaining. And let me know what your picks are for your least favorite Godzilla movies. Until next time, everyone.